tonight. I just called my wife. She said our house didn't get blown away, but she said the rains are going about 3 inches deep down the middle of the road right now. So we didn't get that here, but she sounds like we got. She said the lightning is so intense that you can't hardly stand to be by the window. So I'm glad we're in here tonight and not sitting at lawn chairs out someplace next to a building. All right, we're going to do a very brief business meeting tonight, and we're going to turn it over to Robert Ingulls and Ted Harris to give us a talk about a building that I've been trying to get on the historical study topic for probably 5 or 6 years, and I never pursued it until this year, so I'm sure glad it's going to happen tonight. Yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. We'll start out with a very quick treasurer's report with Steve Battistow. It's all right.
Okay, we started off the month of June with $16,890.99 in the treasury. We took in a couple $100 in dues. We sold some publications, sold some photo reprints. We got funded for our essay contest, and we got our Kroger rewards. Remember we talked about this before, and it was down. We were getting like $50, $60. This time we got $100. So thank you everybody who signed up. It really makes a difference. So we had total income of $645.23, and we spent some money. We've kind of kept you apprised. We're doing some things in the museum and in the library, and we've done some stuff in the veterans room. And now we're kind of attacking the museum, and we're going through our entire collection there, deciding how to display things better and make that a better experience for people to go through that museum. We've had to expend some money to buy some things for some shelving and some things like that, and a lot of labor on the part of Mr. Reese here. So we spent $162 on that. The essay contest cost us the $250 that we were funded, and we spent some money on food and drink for the picnic and so on. So we've spent $592.86, left us a balance of $16,943.36.
This month, our meeting was held at Frederick's Landing, and it was our annual picnic. Ken opened the meeting, welcomed new members and guests, and thanked the City of Wilder for using their facility. The essay winners of the contest were on hand, and they read their essays for everyone, and they were quite well done. Ken also presented the Volunteer of the Year Award. That was given to Marvin Record this year. We had $16,890.99 in the Treasury last time, and the scanner fund had $3,210 in it. Our membership was at 231 as of last month. Marvin gave us an update on the Saddle Ridge Cemetery and the activities that are going on there. Mike gave us an update on the Evergreen Cemetery, reported that 50 people had participated in the cemetery tour, and that there are 87 sections, and 10 people signed up to provide maintenance on one of those sections. And that's about it for the next.
Thank you, Jan. Jan, paid membership?
Approximately 235 to 240 right now, paid memberships. We sent out letters to people who had not paid their dues for a couple of years, and we did get back some results from that, and we got back some that were not deliverable. So that tells us to take those people off our list. We don't keep sending newsletters when we don't need to. About 235, 240 right now.
9 in 1950. Diana Steinbach and her mother, Mrs. Ingle, gave us yearbooks from Highlands High School from 1951 through 1955. The Gray family donated us 4 scrapbooks from Ruth Moyer PTA, the late 60s, early 70s, as well as about a dozen Newport High School yearbooks and a couple copies of the Newporter school newspaper from the late 1940s. A little bit of show and tell tonight. We also received this bottle, Joseph F. Druggist, Newport, Kentucky. There'll be more information on this in the next newsletter, maybe 2 newsletter. And you can come up and see this after the meeting. There's a 1950s picture of the Alexandria Courthouse, and then a 1925 advertisement for Wadsworth watch cases. So just come up and after the meeting, you can look at it, no problem. And that's the gifts and donations.
Okay, thank you. Anything new on History Day?
No, I've emailed the History Day committee and not hearing anything back, starting to get a little frustrated, honestly. So I'll keep following up on that. One of them I want to talk with, I actually know where she works, but that's not a threat, it's a public place. Might go down and do some research and accidentally bump into her and ask her questions. No update, unfortunately.
What's happening with History Day is that we've been at Northern for 22 years?
25.
25, okay. And Northern is not being very cooperative, so we decided to, I should say they decided to move it, and we don't know where it's going to be next year. So right now it's kind of in limbo. All right, Steve, anything with picture albums?
Well, yeah, a couple of things. First of all, I've scanned a total of 6,484 photos so far in negatives. But more importantly, I don't know that we said anything or not. We got the collection of the gray photo negatives, some 500,000 negatives from Dan and Flo Gray. And we had a couple of requests for wedding pictures and so on from that collection, and we didn't have them.
And we searched every place.
We searched everywhere. Jeff Weimer had pictures of when Ken brought them the first time. We just didn't know what to do with ourselves. We had no idea where they could be.
But they were in the index.
They were in the index, yeah, we knew they existed, but we were missing several years of these, and it was all the ones these people were looking for. So one day Flo Gray came into Staples to get some stuff, and she said, oh, by the way, we've got some more negatives for you. She said, I think they're mostly our personal negatives, but you know, they're all yours. So we've been trying to contact them and find the right time because they sold the house or the studio they were in, what have you. They've sold that. Out of the blue, Dan Gray calls one day on a Wednesday and said, hey, we're closing on this house. We've got to have everything out of there. So Ken went down last Friday. If you remember last Friday around noon, it was pouring down rain. Pouring down rain. That was exactly when Ken was there loading up the pictures. Fortunately, he had a box of garbage bags in his truck, and he wrapped them all up in garbage bags so that nothing got wet or damaged. On Saturday, I went down to the office, and Dan was working, and the two of us sorted through everything that was there. I think we have all the missing negatives now. Okay, we put them all in numerical sequence, and I do believe they're all there, plus a couple that we didn't even know we were missing. So now the trick is to find boxes to put them all in so that we can properly store them on the shelves so that people can get them off. Right now they're in boxes that are about this big and they weigh like 20 pounds a piece, and they're really awkward and just too much to get off the shelf. So I'm searching now for boxes to put them in that will be easy for everybody to get off the shelf, easy for everybody, more importantly, to put back on the shelf where they belong, so that we can keep track of everything. And then, once we do that, then I think we can put out notification to a lot of people that we have these, and if anybody's looking for reprints, we can make those available to them.
So 500,000 negatives takes up a lot of space, and they're very heavy. I've carried every box, I know.
Right now, I would guess, the first load was 63 boxes, and this time, I would say, it was awkward the way they were, but it's probably another dozen boxes anyway. So you're talking 75 boxes that are like, you know, this size. That's a lot of boxes.
And the comment was made while I was picking them up. He says, well, we were thought about just throwing them away, but we thought, well, we should call you. I'm sure glad they called us. Otherwise, we've been missing that whole section and not knowing why. Thinking we lost it or something. Okay, Jan, anything on the newsletter?
Yes, the next newsletter will be out at the end of August. It'll be the September issue. I've already put out notices to my normal contributors to get me articles, and they are doing so. Anybody that wants to put anything in the newsletter ever, get it to me. This time, I'm hoping by August 1st, and so that's only a couple weeks away. So I can get the newsletter put together and out to you by the end of September.
Correspondence, emails?
Yes, couple of interesting things coming up. They're not local, but they're very much in tune with Kentucky genealogy. First of all, on August 5th, late night, library late night with professional consultation at the Kentucky Historical Society Library. If you've never been down there and you do genealogy, you really should go down there and check it out. You might be surprised at what they have on your ancestors. And they're very helpful.
Where is that located?
It's in Frankfurt,
Oh, it's in Frankfurt.
right in Frankfurt. It's the Martin F. Schmidt Research Library. And it's the Kentucky Historical Society has a little campus. They actually have a couple different buildings there. But this is free. Oh no, $5. Sorry, the next one's free. This one's $5. I think they want you, there's a phone number here if anybody's interested. And you can research, and they're going to have some local professionals there to consult with. So I'll leave this up here if you want to look at it later and take down the information. Then the next one is Genealogy Day at the library in Louisville, the Louisville Public Library. And they're having a whole set of sessions starting at 9 a.m. on August 27th until like 5 o'clock. And it's free. I think they want you to register. But you can come up and look at German research, burial customs, how to protect your collections, all different things. So that's a nice event too. You can check it out up here later.
Anything else?
Oh, there were a couple more emails from Stuart Sanders at the Kentucky Historical Society. This is mainly for board members, and we'll discuss it later at our meeting, but something very interesting on grants.
I saw the same thing.
And I was thinking our board members might be interested. We're trying to get, if you all aren't here every month, we're trying to get a scanner or a microfilm reader that will read these photo negatives that we just got. And it's pretty expensive, and we've started a fund. Now there's a grant, and it did include technology as part of the things you're allowed to apply for. A lot of grants don't want you to apply for anything technology related. They want you to do a program, or they want you to do, something with youth or something like that. We just need the machine. And nobody, not even this library here in Campbell County, has one anymore. A good microfilm, microfiche reader. So we're trying to do that. If anybody has technology sponsors, businesses, local Campbell County businesses that want to sponsor we have a Sponsor of the Month program. Please let me know. I'll get in touch with them if you think they're interested. They pay $50 a year, $50 a year, and they're the sponsor for 1 month in our newsletter. So.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, the problem with grants is that there's so many stipulations. Of course, they do that on purpose. And some of them you have to skip sideways on Tuesday afternoon after 4 o'clock, and then you're qualified. There's so many crazy things with grants that it's very difficult to find. And our biggest problem, is, especially with our building, is that we don't own the building. We're just simply using a county building, which automatically disqualifies us from a whole bunch of grants we could have gotten because we don't own the building. So there's a lot of problems with grants. If you know anybody who's a good grant writer or wants to give some time to us, we would love to talk to them. Okay, the cemetery, we don't have, Marva's not here tonight. They're still working on the Saddle Ridge Cemetery out there beyond Alexandria. That's the one where they built over top of a cemetery, and now the people found out about it, living there, and some people were up in arms, and some people don't want to know anything about it. So we're still talking to them about that. No veterans report tonight. Pictures of the hallway. We have some great pictures of the stone houses in Camp Springs. And Pam Casebolt and Glenn and several other people have been working diligently on this, and it looks fantastic. If you get a chance to stop out in the hallway and look at our display, it's well worth seeing. It's very well done, and it's a great addition to our our museum and library. Anything on the Evergreen Cemetery, Mike?
Yeah, they didn't have a meeting last month. The next meeting will be the 28th of July, and they're still looking for sponsors for different sections in the cemetery, and also anybody who'd like to join as a member.
Did you get all their trees that went down cleaned up and everything?
No, they're cleaned up. However, there's approximately 100 trees at Evergreen that should be taken down in various stages. They didn't lose that many during the last storm, but over years, trees have died and they have not been taken down. It costs approximately $1,000 per tree to take them down because you just can't cut it and let it fall. It has to come down piece by piece, so it's more expensive than just cutting it and letting it fall than cutting it up because of the tombstones that you destroy under them when they come down. And they were lucky along those lines when the trees fell during that last storm. They only had a couple of the headstones which were damaged at all. So they were really lucky along those lines.
After tonight, who knows what's going to happen. It is raining outside, by the way. Okay, we talked about the grave photos. We met at Frederick's Landing last month for our picnic. We kind of ran out of space this year, which is a good thing. Glenn's looked into Cold Spring City Building, and it looks like we might be able to apply for that. So we may move to that next year. We'll see how that works. But that's a nice facility. They've got lots of space and everything, so we'll look into that. We've been invited to participate in the Senior Citizens Picnic, which is at September 22nd down at Pendry Park, which I understand got really drenched tonight. There was grilling for Tim was on, and they said they was just about washed them away tonight. So the DAR magazine, we have a collection of DAR magazines that go back to the 1890s. We determined that the vast majority of them have nothing to do with Campbell County. They take up a huge amount of space. So we decided to go to the Kentucky Historical Society, put out a information quest if anybody else wanted them. And how many people have called us or emailed us?
4. And one is Boone County Library. We're going to donate them to them. Because there was another lady from Kenton County DAR who I tried to contact, because she had mentioned to Martha Pelfrey one time that she would like to know if we ever were going to get rid of them. I called her, I emailed her, she has replied nothing back to me. So we're going to go with Boone County Library, who was actually the first person to contact me and say that she will even come and pick them up. So
The biggest problem is there is not a searchable index.
Right, right.
And I called the national headquarters and talked to the lady probably for 25 minutes one day, and she agreed with me that without a searchable index, they're not of much use to us. Because, you know, you can't have somebody come in off the street and try to go to, you know, who knows how many magazines. If you don't know what you're looking for, they're not much use to it. So if somebody wants them, that's great. So we're going to pass them on. We've done that with several things recently that people have given us that really don't fit Campbell County at all. But we don't want to throw them away, obviously, so we'll find somebody else who can use them, and that's what we're doing. So we're creating more space now, because we have very limited space to begin with. Our sign out front, I took it down. I took it to a sign company in Alexandria and said, our sign was redone by the city, the county, and when they redid it, they put the conservation district above us, and we were the second thing on the sign. Our lettering was small and inconspicuous. Everybody thought we moved because they couldn't even find us anymore. So I took it down and I had it completely redone. So our lettering now is much bigger, much bolder, and bright red. So I think it shows up much better than it did. So I'm glad that's accomplished finally. This Saturday is Backroads Farm Tour. I have a bunch of brochures here. If anybody would like to take a ride in the country, it's all free that day. You're travel all over the county. One event's right here in Newport, over by the detention center. They have a garden there this year. But it's all over the county. Please come up and take a brochure before you leave. My museum's going on. I've been beating myself to death for the last week and a half getting my place ready. Hopefully it's not washed away when I go home tonight, but it's not been working on it all week. So please come up and take a brochure if you want to before you leave. Future meetings. We're going to visit North Kentucky University's log cabin, which is on the campus. That's for August. I haven't worked out parking yet, but I'm going to work on that next. We were going to go to A.J. Jolly Festival in the Lake, but we chose not to participate because of the fact it's a fundraising event for the park. When we figured out it was going to cost us so much money to participate, we would never make that much money back selling anything. So we decided not to participate, so we turned them down. We're not going to go to that this year. September the 8th, we're going to have a meeting at Wilder with Mark Schlasher. He was the very last on-air personality for WNOP, Radio Free Newport. So he's going to talk to us that night. He's a unique character, so I'm sure you'll be entertained by him that night. He's very big with Behringer Crawford. He works at Behringer Crawford a lot now. October the 13th, we're meeting right down the street here in Newport City Building. We're going to have a talk about George Wiedemann, and Don Tolsman's going to give a talk about the history of George Wiedemann and the Wiedemann Brewery. If you know anybody who worked for George Wiedemann Brewery, let us know. They should come to that meeting and talk to us about it. October the 16th is Camp Springs Herb Store down there. November the 10th, we're going to meet at the Water City Building. We're going to talk about the Beverly Hills fire. The police chief from Southgate retired. He's going to talk to us about that. That's also our election that night for officers and board members. December the 8th is our Wilder, we at Wilder, and we're going to have our Christmas social there. The Hills of Kentucky Dulcimers will be playing for us at that meeting. Does anybody else have anything else they'd like to discuss before we go to our speakers? Okay. Well, having said all that, I'm going to turn it over to Steve Bannister, who will introduce our speakers for the evening.
This has been a little difficult to put together, but Robert Ingulls and I have had numerous conversations, and we finally did that. We're talking about the Southgate Street School, and as I was reminded earlier, many years ago it was Southgate Alley, because that's exactly what it is an alley. The little school's over here right behind the Hofbrau house. It's an island within their parking lot now. That's all that remains of it. But Mr. Robert Ingulls went to school there when he was just a little lad, okay? He has contacted another gentleman that I think some of you know, Mr. Ted Harris. Ted Harris actually wrote the book on the Southgate Street School. And yes, there is a book of the history of the school. Shirlene reminded me she used it when she wrote one of her pieces for her master's degree. She used his book for that. So it's a very, very good book, and I told Robert, I said, I think Teddy's going to give us the nuts and bolts of this thing, and then he's going to provide the spice because he was there and he knows all about the teachers and the other students. So at this point, I'd like to turn it over to Mr. Ted Harris and Mr.
And we've talked extensively, but I've never had the opportunity of meeting him. So therefore, it was a great opportunity to see you in person. And likewise, me, of course. Now, Southgate Street School, and I want to thank the Campbell County Historic Society for the interest in Southgate Street School here. It has a varied history, and of course, many of you may know Teddy Harris and may not know him, but he was responsible. When we were doing our bicentennial, Newport bicentennial, he was responsible for getting this book and putting it together, and for the bicentennial here in Kentucky here. And it's a development history of Southgate Street School in Newport, Kentucky from 1866 to 1955. That's the time period he compiled this. So at this moment in time, what I want you to do is just close your eyes and sort of go and reminisce. If you can go back to the period of 1865 and just visualize what Newport was at that particular time, the population, what was going on between the various communities. Now, I lived on Central Avenue. My grandmother lived in Central Avenue. And we talk about intermingling. At that particular time, I didn't have no problems with color because everybody in my neighborhood was either Italian, German, or what have you. So therefore, and we went to different houses. Now, they were all nice, won't you come eat? But my grandmother would not allow anybody to come, me to go to anybody's house, couldn't come to our house to eat all the time. She's that type of person. She was a farm and school teacher down in Georgia many years ago. Then at that particular time, blacks, you know, if you graduated from high school or went to college maybe 1 year, you were eligible to teach. So that's one of the things that with her, she was able to mingle, and the people, you know, were in our neighborhood was just many cosmopolitan area, I'll put it that way. And but as I stated, I want you to just reminisce. And Terry Harris has done a tremendous job on this book. Documentation is everything, and he can bring you up to date. And after he's finished, then I have Mr. and Mrs. Miles, who will come give you some candid remarks about their adventures and their times at Newport, at Southgate Street School. And then I myself will try to give you some of the things that I had encountered at Southgate Street School. And I've also brought some pictures here that you may see. Some of these pictures over here are some of the kids who went to school there. And I'm not a historian, I'm a curator. I love collecting junk. And I've got so much stuff in my house that I try to give it to people. But I see something and I love history. And I think we need to pass this on so everybody can have, you know, can enjoy it. So see, these are some of the things that I have collected, pictures that when I was in 8th grade there, pictures over there. And I also have an article that was written by Mr. over here, back here many years ago, when he was interested in Newport, Southgate School, and wrote this article. So I thought because I thought he'd be here and I wanted to see that particular article. So this time I said, just go back. Mr. Harris will take over. I'll go back there, sit back and enjoy it.
I guess I contributed to five encyclopedias in the past 3 years. Encyclopedia of North Kentucky, African Americans Underground Railroad in Kentucky, History of Lincoln Grant Schools is in Covington, includes a lot of information about Newport, Southgate Street School, and somehow I can't remember what it was. But anyway, what I like to do is start off and give you a little background information on Southgate Street School. At the close of the Civil War in 1866, the Freedmen's Bureau, which had not been in Kentucky during the Civil War, was deemed to be expanded into the new state of Kentucky. And that's by General Howard. General Howard, as you probably know, may not know, that he is the one that Howard University in Washington, D.C. is named after. But he was in charge of the Freedmen's Bureau as far as in Tennessee going to Kentucky. At that time, the government decided they needed to do something with the African American former slaves. And the best thing to improve their lot was to have a school building where they could learn everything. So what I'd like to do is read a few sentences and give you a little background. Following the Civil War, the Freedmen's Bureau was extended into Kentucky. On March 16, 1866, Campbell County joined Kenton and Boone counties as part of the new 9th District of the Freedmen's Bureau. One responsibility of this new district was the implementation of an educational program for newly manumitted slaves. In April 1866, the Freedmen's Bureau, with assistance from the Freedmen's Aid Commission and Missionary Aid Association, opened a number of schools throughout Kentucky. In September 1867, with assistance from the Missionary Aid Association, a freedmen's school opened in Newport, Kentucky. During this early period, most freedmen's schools in Kentucky were established in the local churches. While the exact location cannot be documented, the fact remains a school was established and continued in operation in Newport, Kentucky. So by 1869, with the dissolution of the Freedmen's Bureau due to take effect in 1870, the Bureau's Chief of Education for Kentucky, Colonel Ringel, decided to call all African American leaders together at a convention that was held locally. Colonel Wrinkle wound up leaving here after his term was over during the Civil War to Miami University in Oxford, which was kind of a unique situation for us because he did have a lot of information. In February 1866, the Kentucky legislature made its first attempt to provide schools for African American children. That law provided that all taxes collected from African Americans be placed in a separate fund. One half of the fund was provided for paupers, the other half for education. An additional poll tax of $2 would be collected from every African American male over the age of 18. The Commission of Taxes in each county was to keep a separate book or separate column listing all African American males over 18 and all taxable properties. One of the things that African Americans always had in the state of Kentucky during this early period in our history, in our state history, was the fact that African Americans didn't have any property, they didn't own anything. So when the government tells you that you have to establish a school and build from the ground up, because the only thing you had either dilapidated buildings or you had to start new construction. They didn't have any money. So that told the state government that you're going to have to do something to assist these African Americans to establish a school system. So that's exactly what it did. So you need a school system, you need building, you need teachers, and you need a means of providing for all the things that goes on. So that's where we are in 1869, up to about 1869, 1873. And one of the other problems that we have in setting up a school like this is you have to have location. Location was the key. So what I'm going to talk about here is in 1873 law was the last of such legislation that would have any bearing on African Americans in Newport, Kentucky, and before Southgate School was constructed. But that legislation made no further provision for financing schools for African American people of Kentucky. The presumption seemed to have been that African Americans would establish school districts similar to those of the white population and would levy their own school taxes. With such a small African American population, these children, had no means for collection of taxes, and there were only a small number of African Americans property owners in Newport or Campbell County. Now, what I'm going to do is I'm going to jump ahead and I'll give you sort of background so you can think about the challenges we were facing at the time. In the 1870 census, the African American population of Newport was 122 residents, less than 1% of the total population of 15,087 people. That's the whole population of Newport. One of the other things that happened was they also had to think about, they were always in competition with Louisville, the bigger area, bigger district for the state of Kentucky, and Covington. So what they decided to do, they had to get some leadership. That was another problem they had there. They had a number of people who are long-time residents, African American residents, and some of those people that had attended those conventions down in Louisville, established by the Freedmen's Bureau and so forth. So some of the people you've never heard of before, because I've always looked around Newport to see if they ever mentioned some of these African Americans that was trying to set up a school system in the 1870s. One person that I did hear that was here for a while and had their relatives still here was Washington Rippleton. There was a Charles W.M. Johnson. William Lumpkin was a businessman. He had a shoe shop down Monmouth Street. Isaiah Lawson, Lawrence Tolliver, Jacob Davis, Samuel Fairbush, Reuben Wright, Robert Littleton, and Dennis Lightfoot, and Henry Sanders. So these are some of the influential African Americans that were residing in Newport. Some of the first school teachers they had to bring on board to help this new school was a Miss Elizabeth Hudson, was appointed its teacher with a salary of $35 per month. The school opened on Tuesday, September 19, 1873. The students were to present themselves at 9 o'clock for registration and admission. The Southgate School was under the jurisdiction of the Newport Board of Education. So what the wisdom of the General Assembly did decide that they were trying to get the African Americans to set their own school board, but they just didn't have the means to do that. So they said, okay, we're gonna solve this problem right now, and you're gonna be under the jurisdiction of the Newport School Board. And this information is kind of enlightening. Superintendent of schools, when I was doing this research, superintendent of schools at the time was a guy by the name of Danny Sullivan. I don't know if you know him or not. I think he may be still around here. But he gave me free access to the board minutes, which was very helpful to me because I did have to authenticate certain information that I had. But Danny Sullivan, he gave me a free reign of the board minutes. See, in October 1870, Newport City Council purchased the Southgate Street property from a local family. The Board of Education was permitted usage of said property, but the city of Newport maintained the deed. But to allow for African American children to be educated, the Newport City Council amended the city charter, and they did as such. Section 1, be it enacted by the General Assembly of the Commonwealth of Kentucky that the Board of School Trustees of the City of Newport, out of any funds in their hands derived by taxation under and by virtue of the city ordinance of said city be and are hereby authorized and empowered to establish and maintain schools for the Negro children of the city in such numbers and localities as their judgment will furnish sufficient educational facilities for the Negro children of the city. And it goes on further on that. You can read my essay, my book on this, where I talk about that. Now, one other source of information that I got from was the Cincinnati Inquirer. Now, that Inquirer I read, I was doing research for, was over to the Cincinnati Historical Society. It's in the bottom of the Union Terminal. They talk a great deal. The Cincinnati Daily Gazette did a lot of writing about African American schools in Newport and in Covington. So that's where I got a lot of my information. I can talk about a lot of the residents who helped establish the school, African American residents. And like I said, Dennis Lightfoot was one of them. He's a Baptist minister here in Covington for a long time. He lived on Robert Street, 57 Robert Street. He had Reverend Lightfoot also lived, he lived at 111 East 11th Street and continued his occupation as a whitewasher until 1892. After 1892, there is no listing of Mr. Lightfoot in the city of Newport. Robert Littleton was another guy. He had his own business. He's African American. Had his own business and was located on Monmouth Street. And he was very prosperous and very dynamic. Now he gave the Premium Bureau all kind of fits for not providing additional funds to help them run the school. So he was a very popular guy, and he had a lot of things going on. But I want to skip ahead here. I want to talk about taxes. And that's a big thing for me, because to run anything, you have to have a means of support. So this is some of the things that happened. It said in 1882, the Commonwealth of Kentucky made its final decision on statewide school funding, a decision that Newport Board of Education had previously decided. The State Board of Education brought the white African American school system more closely together by the appointment of all school monies to white and African American children alike. From that period until 1954, the school tax, so far as the state was concerned, will be the same on property that will be owned by both black and white residents of Kentucky. The preamble of this law clearly sets out the intent of the legislature that the white and African American per capita tax be the same. Therefore, if African Americans capital tax for school purposes, read the same, therefore, the African Americans capitalization tax for school purposes from 1866 to 1873. This law was later repealed by 1882. But from the state's concerned, they said everything has to be equal. That's what they were concerned about. So if you look at, I have a picture there, Southgate Street School when it was constructed. It was a grand building, and it's right there in the middle. Yeah, the point. And this is how the book still looks today, except it doesn't have the point where the date of construction was at the point of it. I think it's over there, and it looks the same. You know, one thing I said about the attendance of the building, they have done a good job trying to maintain the appearance. So they've done a pretty good job. I think they have there's a restaurant behind them. And the only thing, I was, when the state, at the one time I was part of the Historical Commission in the state of Kentucky. And they were trying to get some funds to stabilize the building. They had to fight the city of Newport. So luckily, the Historical Society, the African American Heritage Commission from the state of Kentucky, supported their efforts as far as maintaining that school. So they've done a good job. In fact, I think at one time we even had a conference with the city manager. I can't think of his name now, but we had a lot of meetings with the city officials in Campbell County. Well, most of them were pretty energetic and understood what we were trying to do. One of the other things that was really kind of holding the city of Newport back as far as Southgate Street School was, they just didn't have a large population. They didn't have money to keep it going, and they had to do it by other means. And what they did was they did anything to help the kids out. But they had to, I think in 1923 and 20s, the standard education system maintained that the school system had to maintain a certain average, grade average, in order to be, to get a diploma in the state of Kentucky. So at the time, Southgate Street School was not on par with the rest of the African American schools in the state of Kentucky. So they started sending the students to Covington. But the Board of Education, Newport Board of Education said we will supplement the funding to go to Lincoln Ranch School across the county line, across the river. And they did that until 1950 when integration came into effect. But these are some of the kids that led Southgate Street School. This is the principal. This is part of the. You're right. Those kids, most of those kids there in that picture were part of the Boy Scouts. The African American residents in Newport had their own Boy Scout troop. Now, I did an article about that. I think it was in North Kentucky Heritage magazine, where I went over to the Boy Scout headquarters over in Reading, and they had all the background information I needed for the Boy Scout troop in Newport and Covington. And that was a result of their effort. The one guy there is the principal. I think his name is Harris, and there was another fellow left out. I think he's one of the school teachers. But they had four. They never had over 5 teachers. I think there's another picture. I don't know if they have this or not. But I have a picture that I got from a lady who was a friend of my mother's, and for their graduation class, and they did a good job. Some of the teachers, although they had lacked the material they needed. But this lady here, named Miss Lillian Wise and Dilma Fox, it's in this picture here. I don't know if they had this picture, but it's not up there. It might be in it. But these are graduating class. This is graduating class from 1919 1920. After that, it passed a law that said, okay, from this point on, after 1950, the Brown versus Board of Education, when the integrated school said, now you have to stay in your home district. So they left Lincoln Grant, they came over here, and I think the first graduating class was Newport Public. I think that was in 56, 57, somebody got to help me back there. But that was a prime example of what they did. These kids accomplished a lot of things, considering what they think they had to work, the teachers had to work with. And see, a couple other things I just want to point out. One of the things I did find out, and I was very proud of this, when I found this out, I was talking to some older people I knew from Newport. And Newport, when 1954 school desegregation bill came about, they had all kind of problems throughout the state of Kentucky, as you may well expect. Newport and Erlanger and Tiller, two school districts that never had a problem. They didn't have picketing and all that, they didn't have anything. So they pretty well, I guess the residents knew each other, small communities knew each other, and they were able to work together. Now, I might be wrong, but that's what I found out. And in fact, I talk about it in one of these articles here. This is one point I want to talk about. And they traveled from Newport across the Lincoln River to Lincoln Grant School in Covington. And that was a challenge. You get up there early in the morning and catch a bus, go across the bridge to get to school. Now keep in mind, one of the other problems that they had was that affected every school teacher in the state of Kentucky and female school teachers. Is the fact that if you were married, if you had kids, you could not teach in Kentucky school system. That was the law of the land. One thing about it, I can say it's a fact. My grandmother graduated from college in 1909. She had a two-year college, two-year diploma, as they call it. She graduated from West Virginia State College. And she came back to well, she came to Newport, that's what she came, to teach school, the school system. And then next thing you know, she found my grandfather, they got married and they started having all these kids. She never teach school. And all my cousins, you know, I tease them all the time. I said, what do you people, I said, my grandma man teach school. You know? They get mad at me all the time. But anyway, that's fact. And that was true up until, I think it was in the 50s, I think it was true. One of the outstanding teachers they did have here was a lady by the name of Miss Ruth Bond. While she was a resident of Newport, but a lot of her relatives did mill into it. This Bond lady was kin to the Bonds of Louisville, who was also related to the Bond in Atlanta, Georgia. Junior Bond, he was the head of all kinds of civil rights activities back during the 70s and 80s. But the same family group. I have pictures of Miss Cox, she's another teacher, Nora Warren, Charles Harris, no relation to me, but he's the one on the picture there, Charles Harris. One of the other things that had an impact on African American students in the time was in 1926, Mr. A.D. Owens was appointed superintendent of Newport schools. Under his direction, Southgate Street School would receive considerable attention. He increased the number of teachers based upon it increased the number of students and population of Newport. His requirements were strict, and some of the teachers would not last long at the school. Mr. Owens' attention to Southgate Street School was well received in the African American population. They thought very highly of Mr. A.D. Owens. Now, I remember at one time that there was an A.D. Owens Elementary School down on 11th Street here in Newport. So apparently the other rest of the population also thought very highly of him. So that's about all I'm going to say. I'm going to run out of voice anyway. So I'm going to sit here and see if I can answer some of your questions. But this was a real rewarding effort in trying to get all this information together so I can have it published. Yes, sir, Ken.
About how many students attend the school? I mean, at any given time? Yeah, I know it's probably varied, but
It's in here. I got it in my.
the African American population wasn't very big, I can't imagine the school.
It never was very big.
Yeah.
The Board of Education did a census of all the schools in Newport, which includes Southgate Street School. And I got, it's here.
It's on page 19, I think.
We have that census.
Page 19.
Okay, yeah, here it is, here. The Newport population statistics, 1860 to 1950. 1950, general overall population was 31,044. Black population in Newport is 980, which is 3.2%. This is 1950. Campbell County population statistics from 1860 to 1950. 1950, total population of Campbell County was 75,216. Black population in Campbell County is 1,004, 1.3% of the population. So we're talking about out there behind Northern Kentucky University, there, blacks lived out in that area, and they lived throughout Campbell County at one time. But that was the population statistics, at that, according to the residents' numbers at the time.
The school had grades 1 through 8, correct?
They had 1 through 8, they had up to 12th grade up until 1920. See, that's why I have pictures of some of the graduating students. You know, Miss Lillian Wise, and later on in later years, I guess she really gotten up in age. She lived on 12th Street in Covington. This is up until about 1980, 1985, something like that. But she never get married. She stayed right there in Newport. Some of the course study for the first year is 1901. They had English, algebra, Latin, botany, zoology, ancient history. And that's their first year of high school. Second year of high school, they had English, algebra, plain geometry. Goodness gracious, I was and Latin, medieval and modern history. Third year of high school was English, Latin, plain and solid geometry, and physics. So they had a pretty good education based upon what the state required. So, you know, I see what my mother gave me. My mother spoke Latin. She always gave me a hard time. But yeah, that's some of the information that I had in the back of the book. So, like I said, most of the information came from the Newport Board of Education and from the various census records from the state of Kentucky. So, I see Jim Reese there. That's my old friend. We used to do a lot of arguing. We used to have a lot of discussions. Yes, ma'am.
Your mother was a teacher?
No, my grandmother was.
Your grandmother?
And my mother wasn't a teacher. Now, you know, I asked my relatives, my mother's siblings about what happened. My mother passed in 1980. And some of the things I wanted to ask her, she was gone by that time. So I asked my brothers, you know. And one of the things that I said, what did your mother have you doing during the Depression, during the 30s? I said, what kind of activities? You guys didn't have any TVs and having all these games and things they have nowadays. What did y'all do? She said, crossword puzzles. And they listen to radio. They listen. One radio program was pretty famous back in those days. But mainly it was crossword puzzles. That's what they did. Kept them busy, I tell you what.
Yeah, you're right about the fact that the ladies couldn't get married because I'm a retired teacher and I was doing some research on the same subject, and they were saying that once a lady got married, and that was the end of her teaching career, but a lot of times they made so little they had to live with some of their students. And then the job required you taught school, you fed the fire in the stove, you oiled the floors because that was the only way to keep the dust down, and you were expected to keep the building in good order, and pay for all. And then you lived with one of your students, you had parents. So I mean that was a tough situation for anybody.
I know they told me I was talking about Southgate Street School, some of the older guys that I got to meet, and they said that the principal had to take the ashes out of the coal chute, feed the fire for the winter to eat, and wash windows, do everything. The principal didn't have an easy job those days.
you say that the school was originally a home of people who live there?
No.
No, you didn't say
I didn't
that?
say that. I got some more information in here about how the school came about, but it was dictated by the state government to do certain things. And that was when they got that building there, that's where they stayed at. Even today, it's still standing, well constructed building.
Mr. Ingulls, would you like to come up and join us? And
Yes, sir.
I'm sorry, did you attend Southgate?
No, I went to Wayne Grant, Governor.
Oh, you want to cross the river like the rest of them.
That's where I was from.
Oh, you were from Cincinnati?
I'm from Covington.
Oh, Covington, rather, okay.
Yeah, I was on the west side of Covington.
But Robert did attend the school.
Yeah, he did, yes.
Oh, Robert did,
I
okay.
did. I attended,
And what grade did you attend, Robert?
from the 1st grade to the 8th grade.
Okay. And then,
But go back to what he was stating, he brought it to 1955. Now, you all know, after 55, what was going on in Newport, it was the high sin city, they called it. So at that particular time, when the school was up, when they abolished the school was up for sale. So I don't know if any of you remember Screw Andrews or... Well, we had a member who was a member of Newport Lodge 120 at that particular time. And he worked for Screw Andrews down the Sportsman Club, which was on Central Avenue. And when the building came up for sale, somehow or other he talked to Mr. Andrews, and Mr. Andrews said, well, what we'll do, I'll buy the place, and then the school, the people, the lodge can buy us, from him. So that's what he did. He put up the initial money, and I think at that particular time, I got some records, I think it was about $3,500, something like that. The school building was sold for by the Board of Education. So that was the initial starting of Newport Lodge 120, occupying the building there. Now, the building was very much disarray when they went in. You can see some of the pictures on there. It was, after the school moved out, it stayed vacant for a while, and any time something stays vacant, it starts deteriorating. People go in and start vandalizing. But they worked, raised money, tried to get the building up, so they opened up, and I think in the basement there was a barber shop. This was before my time. I had I was in college at a particular time, so therefore I wasn't, but I knew what was going on at the school there. So that is the beginning of Newport 120, owning Southgate Street School.
Where did you go on to after the 8th grade?
After the 8th grade, I went to Lincoln Grant.
Okay.
That was in Covington. We were, like he said, a lot of us had to walk to school. Green Line buses, I guess you all remember the Green Line buses. Sure. Bethleana's 8th and 7th, 6th and Monmouth, wait for Greyhound, the Green Line bus to come to take us. Then sometimes we'd walk to school. Summertime was fine. Then some of the parents who had cars would pick us up and take us to school like that. But I went to Lincoln Grant. The primary school was William Lincoln.
The high school was William Grant.
High school was William Grant. So that's where I graduated from William Grant High School. And from then, I went on.
Go back to Newport Public, that's where they graduated from. All the kids, after they changed the law and everything, and the schools from Newport come back, they all went to Newport Public. Well, some went to Newport Catholic. Kind of come together.
Yeah, well, now, I used to go to Jimmy Harris. Now, Harris, I did my research. Jimmy Harris went to the Catholic school. Is that James Harris? Yeah. Yeah, he went to Catholic school up on, high school up on the hill there. And then he graduated from Xavier. Then from there he went to the military. It all started coming back to me when you said he did not go to Southgate. No, he did not go to Southgate. He was in elementary Catholic school up on Washington Avenue.
You referenced black students from Newport. Would black students from other parts of Campbell County come to the Southgate School as well?
Yes, it did. Up to a certain time.
Yeah.
Cold
You
Spring.
found a lot in your book, you
All
talked
right, I
about.
talked about that.
And I don't know whether they came from Burlington or Florence.
Well, they all went to Grant.
Walton.
They went to Grant.
People
Anybody in Campbell County went to Campbell County schools.
No.
It was mostly.
If you lived in Southgate, when you went into high school, you had an option if you went to Highland Heights or if you went to Newport. And the city then paid the Newport School Board. And I don't know when they stopped that, but
Was it
now,
after 1955?
yeah, because my wife lived in Southgate
Okay.
and she did not graduate till 63.
So that was after 1953?
It was after 63, and I left the area in 61. But now, if you live even in Wilder, you go all the way out to Campbell County. If you don't pay to go to either Newport Catholic, or I think you could probably pay the Newport school system to attend like you can most school systems. But you had your choice back then on which one you went to, and I think it's one of those things that just got too expensive for the communities to support. So that they found us that they got a county school, you go to the county school, or you pay for it. But I don't know when they stopped doing that, but
Well, if there were young black children like that lived in Alexandria or somewhere out in the county, did they, and couldn't get there, I guess they were just homeschooled? Or-
Well, I can remember, at Southgate when I was there. Now, we had families that lived in Cold Springs.
Okay,
So they were bused in.
Someone had to get them in
They
there.
would rode the bus, come to
Okay.
Southgate Tree School. Now, any other areas, I'm not familiar, because in Dayton, there was no blacks living in Dayton. In Belleville, there was no blacks living in Dayton. So
Okay.
everybody was living, those people who were like in our sense, Cold Springs, those are the ones I can remember being bused into our schools. Now, other areas, there was nobody there. Yeah.
A lot of them, just a few that were in Alexandria, I think they went to Pelton County.
oh, okay.
And there was, there was a school out Erlanger, I think, too, wasn't there? Because I know when I was in high school, there was people in Erlanger were bused to William Grant. Now,
Yes.
elementary school, I can't.
There was an elementary school, it's still there, but they made a training center. It's still there. They stayed there until ninth grade.
Okay.
And then-
So, but I can only speak for Southgate. I know the people where they come
Well,
from.
the reason I ask, I remember my father talking about a black family in Cold Springs.
Right.
The city did pay for those children to go to school in Newport, and I'm trusting that it was the South.
It was, and I'm trying to think of the family that was out in Cold Springs. They had quite a bit of property out there, and the names leave me right now, but they were large family out there.
Yeah.
Very large. So Jefferson was the name. That was the name, was Jefferson.
Yes.
Huh?
Who's that?
The name of the street that mostly kids. Anyway, they used to go in the school,
Bunny Lane, yeah, Bunny Lane.
Oh, Bunny Lane, yeah.
Yeah, that was Bunny Lane.
The Bunny Lane,
Yes,
so they're Cold Spring.
yes.
Yes.
Right.
About how many students were in your classes?
In my class, in 8th grade, we had, we finished 8th grade, there was about 20, I think 25 in my class that went on to William Grant. And
So about how many kids would be in the whole school then? Just a curiosity.
Well, now, I really, at that time, who was keeping track of who all was in school? I was only interested in getting out of there. Now, but you must remember, it was only, the school only had 4 rooms. The 1st and 2nd grade was 1 room, the 3rd and 4th was 1 room, 5th and 6th was 1 room, and the 7th and 8th was 1 room. So in those, and in those rooms there now, I would venture to say in I'm just trying to calculate and guess. There may have been 15 people in both classes, 7th and 8th grade. And in the first and second, I got a little story to tell you about the first and second grade. There was many, because all the kids were there, you know, the place was packed. But as we went along, and during that time, you know, economics and everything, like a lot of kids dropped out. There was a lot of absenteeism, dropouts, because the parents, the kids had to go to work to help the parents and so forth like that. So those who were fortunate to stay in, they were, you know, continued on. So to estimate how many were in the class, like Ted's got things figured out from that early period, but I really can't remember who all was, how many we had in the class, because I was just anxious to get out of there.
Was it one teacher that taught
One
both
teacher.
grades? Okay.
One teacher taught the first and second grade. Now, the advantage of that, you can imagine, you know, if, say, when I got to the third and fourth, now the advantage of being in a class with one teacher and you're in maybe the third grade and the fourth grade is being taught. So you have an advantage of learning what was on in the fourth grade. You know, so when you got there, you had some idea as what the fourth grade section would be about. That's if you're going to be a student and pay attention to what's going on. And I was always the one curious when we found out what's going on. So therefore, I, you know, was appreciated. And it was a great advantage because when I got to the 7th or 4th and 5th grade, I knew something was going on because I was in the 3rd grade and I paid attention. And of course, you can't sit there and say, and ignore what's going on. Yeah. So you hear this.
Simple things like recess and like lunch. And how was all that handled?
Okay, now, recess. 5th, 6th, 7th, and 8th grade entered through the front part of the building. The lower grades entered on the other side.
And which ones were upstairs and which ones were downstairs?
5th and 6th, 7th, and 8th was on the first floor. On the second floor. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th was on the first floor.
Okay.
So they had separate entrances like that. So the recess period was divided up. Now, the lower grades came out first for their recess. 1st, 2nd, 3rd, and 4th. They'd be out there. Then after they had their period, then the upper grades would come down and they'd be out. You know, they didn't mingle all together. Now, the only problem with that is that is the restrooms. The restrooms were in the basement. And you can imagine, I don't want to get this, but you can imagine a child, 1st, 2nd, 3rd, 4th grade going to the basement. And of course, there's where the furnace was down in the basement. So there was a big, huge story about if you go down in the basement, if you do the wrong thing, then they're going to get you and put you in that furnace room. So therefore, I was very curious, but I tried not to go to bed. Because going down those steps, and the steps in the furnace room, you hear that old boiling, the old-fashioned boiling, gurgling. And the stories they told, well, these stories must be true. And back there is going to devour us, you know. So I always wait, you know, I got home, sometimes running home. And I didn't want to get into all this because we have Mr. and Mrs. Miles here who attended the school also, and they have some candid remarks they'd like to tell you about Southgate School. Then I'll come back and tell you some more.
At some time before I started there, they stopped you going to the 8th and made it only 6 elementary, what they call elementary. The junior high had to go to grade. And so we kind of all intermingled the 1st and the 6th grade. When 1st grade, there was a teacher named Miss Patton, and she taught in the Newport school system for like 50 years. She was from Cincinnati, and when I went there, she would have the 1st grade, and then 2nd and 3rd grade, you had to go to Miss Bond, which was across the hall. Then the 4th and 5th was Miss Bruce, which was on the right-hand side on the 2nd floor. And the principal was named Mr. Harrison. He taught the 6th grade. And it was very good. I mean, it was, they taught us, I thought, very well, because when I went to Grant, I was, you know, I made very good grades knowing what I learned at Newport. And when you was talking about recess, I don't remember having recess. not at Southgate. We had lunch. We had lunch, but it was, I think it was like for an hour. And we, hour, maybe half an hour, something like that. And we all used to, you just left the school and you go up to, there was a little store on the corner of 4th and Saratoga. I believe his name was Stevens, I believe. And we used to go there, and they had this, they sold you sandwiches and chips and stuff like that. And then some of us went around to 5th Street to Kelly's Bakery, where we all went and ate. And a lot of people bought rolls at Kelly's, and then they went around and got bologna and got Stevens. Donut. But, you know, he was speaking about with all Canada Mingo, there was a lot of people that just came to Newport, and they came there from the South, mainly, and they weren't as educated, and a lot of them were like 7, 8, but they put them in the 1st grade. They had to put them in the 1st grade, you know, because I doubt they could have did certain things in the 7th or 8th where they should have been. And it got pretty tough, you know, if you want to fight some guy, here you are, 6 years old, and this other guy might be 8 or 9, you know. But my biggest thing I used to really enjoy, I guess we did have recess because we would play fist ball. And you hit a ball with your fist, and you know, and everybody was trying to hit a home run. Of course, the building behind us was at Ford. Ford had a dealership right behind the school. On the other side of the Southgate, that was the back part, and we all was trying to hit the ball over the top of on the roof. But Miss Patton, she was known for her what can I say, her way of punishing. And she loved to spank. Yes, she had this strap that she would use on you. And we had a cloakroom, and she wanted everybody to see it. And she'd take you back to the cloakroom, and she'd put your head right between her 2 legs and knees, and take that strap and come down on you. So you didn't do a lot of stuff in school, inside. I mean, it was a lot of discipline. But I guess a lot of people ran away from that because they didn't like the harsh treatment. But we all got along like a family, you know, because the school was so small, only 4. Everybody knew everybody. I mean, I lived in the East End, what they call the East End, and into like an integrated community. But the majority of people came from the West End. And so, but the East End and the West End didn't get along very well. But I mean, I met a lot of people that I went down that we all went to school together, and like I said, sometimes we go to a certain person's house to eat, or we just all kind of intermingled. And then we had a lot of friends over at later in my 6th grade, I think. We used to go over to, we never had a gymnasium, nothing like that. So we always, they let us go over to 4th Street and use their gym, play basketball, man. But that's about all I gotta say. Yes.
Was there any kind of sports teams or anything like that then, yes?
Well, we had, I think, before I started, when they had a 8th grade, they had a football team. They had no baseball or basketball. They had a football team in which played the white schools, you know, and we had some guys that they're legendary. They all pretty good, you know. There was one family there, their name was Hambry, and I don't know where they're from, but they were all kin to this one guy that he went, I think Kentucky State or somewhere. Anyway, he supposedly beat Jesse Owens in 100 meter. But Jesse Owens was at Ohio State. And when you go to the Olympics, you know, it's about all politics, you know. Ohio State would pick a large school, and they were going to let some other guy from Kentucky State represent the United States. So that's how Jesse Owens, when he won the medals over in Germany.
Now, you say Southgate School was kind of by itself. Now, what was around it when you were going there? Was there businesses or just houses or what?
Just houses.
Just houses.
Houses. On 4th Street School was right down the street.
Yeah.
And the businesses were on 4th Street. And we, you know, out the back of those businesses were facing Southgate.
It was a car dealership.
Car dealership, yeah.
4th Street.
After you finished the 8th grade, where did you go to school then?
Well, I didn't finish the 8th grade. I finished 6th grade.
Okay.
And I went to Grant. Around 1944 or 1941, I think, during the war, they stopped going to 8th.
Okay.
And it just made it elementary school, the 1st to the 6th. And once you left 6th grade, you had to go to Grant. And then they integrated schools in 55. And then I spent 1 year at Grant, then I spent, the rest of my time was at Newport, junior high, and then Newport High School.
I think I played football with you at Newport. When did you graduate? When did you attend Newport High School? What years?
58 to 61.
I did.
Yeah, I was the captain. I was the first black captain they had in Newport.
Well, I was ahead of you. I graduated.
What's your name?
Mike Stahl.
Mike Stahl. I know. And your brother.
Well, which one? I got three brothers.
You had one brother that was around my age. But maybe it was a little bit ahead of me.
Gary was, he graduated in 62, and then Billy was the youngest.
Yeah, but Gary, I guess.
Yeah. It's been about the time.
Yeah.
I'll call now.
Have you had any class reunions
Who else?
from Southgate School?
No, somewhat we had, somewhat. You call it class reunion, we just call it a get together. So we had so many kids that dropped out.
Yeah.
Okay, and when you get back then, when you get in trouble, they would give you a alternative, either go to jail or go in the military. And a lot of people went in the military. As a matter of fact, 3 or 4 close friends of mine all spent 20-some years, and you know, they went at the same time James Harris did. You know, Jim Harris, he went to, like I said, Catholic school. He became a general in the Army.
Overall,
Both of you, are the memories fond of going to school there?
It's what?
Are the memories fond of?
Good.
You know, during that time, they were, for me, were, because I didn't know any difference, you know. So therefore, you know, I made the best of the situation what it was. So I enjoyed my time being there because that was the situation I was in, and I didn't know any difference. So therefore, you enjoy where you are.
Yes.
As Paul says, and in the situation I'm in, you know, content. So therefore, we were content because that was the state of the affairs at that particular time. Now, after I had gone from there and went to Grant, and then, of course, and I got out and so went to college, and well, I could see the difference, you know. But I still wasn't deterred. I didn't have any animosity about the school because I got a very thorough education there. That's one thing I can say, that my education at Southgate School was thorough.
Yes, sir.
Those teachers were very prolific in what they were doing. They were to the point where you had to study and learn. Their theme was, hey, you're not going to work in anybody's field or anything like you were going to college. When I got to high school, I could do algebra. As a matter of fact, they were to advance me, some of us, because we knew algebra, Latin. I didn't have Latin, but I studied Latin when I got to high school, but I had some idea of what was going on. And so we got that inertia in Southgate Free School. And the teachers were the type of people who were determined that you learn. And that was their premise. You're going to learn, what's going on. And they talk about Black history. I can remember we had to keep booklets about Black history. So now when they get to talk about Black history, the kids talking about it, I said, they just don't know. And they have to, but all this, I knew all this, because we were ingrained. So there was to me, there was a great pride, put that way, in being in Southgate High School. Because I couldn't have got this. I think it had been integrated. Now, I think we lost a lot when they start dispersing. But we had the teachers who were dedicated. That was the most important.
Another question, what was it like for you on a personal level when you first went to an integrated school?
I didn't go to an integrated school until I got to college.
Okay, but you did, correct?
Yes.
What was that?
It was a little tough. It wasn't as tough as you would think. 80 Owens, I guess, and Mr. Cobb, they were kind of strict. And I hadn't known a lot of issues when I went to 4th Street. I had a lot of friends that I knew before I went there. Like I say, I lived up on Saratoga, and I had friends all the way up in, I can't think of Rose Street.
Because your neighborhood's growing up,
Neighborhood's
we're all
growing,
integrated, so it just didn't matter.
Well, even on Saratoga, there was more white than there was black when I was coming up. And then it started changing over.
Okay.
Saratoga, Robert Street, David Street, all the way up to, say, 8th, kind of integrated. Then it got kind of segregated when you hit Washington and all like that. But still, we were all friends. I went to a lot of, used to go to a lot of people's houses and stuff like that. So, I mean, I knew the difference. I believe me, I know the difference, but it was still not as bad as you would think, like it was in the South.
There's one thing I can say about Newport. Newport has been almost like a melting pot.
Yeah, it was.
We've never, the things that we've experienced in other areas during that particular time, the things that were experienced, they weren't that way. People seem to accept one another. It's like I said, when I was coming up, there was a lot of Italians and Germans right in the Central Avenue. Then when I moved up, my mother lived in the East End. That's why I started saying, okay, it was all the same thing. You walk the streets, there was no problem. I had a lot of white friends because we were all neighbors. So Newport did not have that problem. That's when integration came about. It was just so easy because other cities were having problems with it.
Yeah, but you have to look at Newport was really a mixture of everything. Because if you look during the war, Breathitt County just about moved into Newport.
Yes,
because they were all coming looking for jobs, and they came into Newport, Cincinnati, and not only Breathitt County, just use that, but it was, you were a stranger, and you were just part of it,
At the West End, I guess, southwest Newport was full of people from eastern Kentucky.
Yep, down around Thornton and, more
Isabel and all that down there.
Down Elm Street and all that was.
I lived on Elm Street.
Oh,
I went to Arnold School.
See, I used to play strikeout. I was throw.
Where did you go to college?
I went to Kentucky State University in Cincinnati.
Okay. Then what did you do?
What did I do?
Yeah, after college.
Well, I taught for a period of time, and then I didn't like that. And then I went back, and then I got in the medical field, and that's where I wound up. staying.
Doing what?
I was an ophthalmic technician. Of course, perimeters. I did special testing for University of Cincinnati. Also, the Veterans Hospital dealing with Agent Orange and different things like that, testing their abilities, and also doing testing for pilots in the war, wearing gas masks, specialized to make sure that they were able to do their job or be able to see when they were, I guess it's how it's classified. I can't give you too much information about that. So I'm not working now, but I'm still classified some of the information.
You know, when I went to when the integrated schools in '55, people that was already at Grant, they could stay or they would come to Newport. A lot of people did stay at Grant, and a lot of them came to Newport High School. I went to
Were your teachers black or white?
where at Southgate.
At Southgate?
They're all black.
All black?
Yeah. One, Mr. Harris he originally came here from Canada. And I think the rest of them from Cincinnati. They were the ones I went to school with.
I don't remember any black teachers in Newport during that period of time.
Oh, they had some.
I mean, not down Southgate, but I mean in the other schools.
When they integrated schools.
They brought some in then?
Well, Miss Patton left.
Those teachers that were in Southgate
Were integrated in?
They integrated into the school system.
They went into the grade school system for the most part then?
Yes, right. Okay.
Some of them didn't.
Miss Bond and Miss Patton. No, I mean Miss Patton.
And I think Miss Patton, they
went to
wow.
Army.
But Miss Bond,
She was Cincinnati. But I had no problem. I mean, once I got through Newport, I had a scholarship at Tennessee State, quit the Air Force, and got a good job with American Airlines. But
Is that where you spent your entire career then, as American Airlines?
well, only 30 years. And I had 14 years with Tank. I used to pick him up in his house. You remember me? Yeah, I used to pick him up. Yeah, I just retired I worked 53 straight years. Just retired last year in March. Wow. In family.
Sure, keep right along.
We had a
Thank everybody for coming tonight. Looks like the rain quit finally, so everybody have a safe trip home.
At least it's not raining.